Well, one thing about recreation in a rainy place like Vancouver is under bridges. It's quite the opportunity to do something. And here we are, just to set a little context. This is one of Vancouver's first sanctioned skate spots. And over here we have BC Place Stadium, we're under Cambie Bridge, and we have one of Vancouver's nicest waterfront neighborhoods right next door. This is a neighborhood that has far more families with kids living in it than we ever expected. And if anything, the challenge is to figure out ways in which we can make this at least as viable, if not a more attractive alternative for folks with families and kids than choosing to live in the suburbs. Yeah, last downtown waterfront neighborhood, under $1 million, my goodness. Welcome to Vancouver, and right next door to a skateboard spot.
I just get in the zone, you know, like an artist or like anyone who's got their passion. So for me, it's my passion. It's what I love to do. And I love to just create. The other thing is the never-ending evolution of tricks. The idea that skating will just progress forever.
Well, in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, street skating really started to take off, and there's a few sort of main spots that everybody would go to that had their little nicknames. There was the Walkway, which was called New Spot on Hastings and Hornby. There was CIBC rails, there was the Bentall Towers, and there was the Art Gallery. Art Gallery tended to be the main meeting spot, and then from there people would branch off into groups and go skate around the rest of the city. But no, it was a really cool, it was a very small little scene, but it was definitely alive. And took place a lot at night. It wasn't really a daytime activity. There was a lot of nighttime skating because that, of course, is when the businesses are closed and it's a lot more access and a lot less pedestrians and traffic.
After years and years of basically being completely going against the grain of society and skateboarding, even though it was illegal, and running away from police to try to not get tickets and get boards confiscated, finally, someone figured it out. They figured that it was very easy to erase the skateboarders from the urban landscape with a simple idea, a clip on the ledge preventing the skateboarder from rolling on it. They were basically stopped. We were completely stopped, and it spread almost like a plague from building to building to building. As soon as we saw the first one, I remember the day I saw the first one, I thought, oh my gosh, like this is going to be a change in skateboarding. Sure enough, 3 years later, everywhere from Stanley Park to Science World and to everywhere in between basically is skate stopped and it's skate proofed. So where you once may have seen 20 skaters at the Art Gallery or at 800 West Georgia or on the 401 building, anywhere where there was some smooth ground and some stairs where there would have been some life, some kids in the city doing something positive, now there's nothing. There's just absolutely nothing. And I think it's a shame because there was some life in the city downtown and now I just think it's a shame that they basically took it away because there's really nothing left to skate on down there unless you strictly want to just jump off stairs, and that's just not nearly as much fun. It's a lot more impact on the ankles and knees.
One of the ironies of planning is that, as somebody said in a meeting when we were discussing the plaza, long time before it opened, I said, the city, the park board, designs these wonderful skateboard facilities in the downtown core. Brilliant skating opportunities, world class. You salivate looking at them. But they do it unintentionally, and when people start skateboarding, they immediately put those ugly metal clamps on them because the neighbors or other users go ballistic. In some cases, that's an overreaction. In some cases, these are not good places to skateboard for a number of reasons. So I think one of the design things is that if you're going to actually create a skating opportunity, do so deliberately, and if you're not, then make sure that your design anticipates that this is not a good place to skateboard, and design so that it is unattractive for skateboarding. And you can do that in a way that's unnoticeable. But if you then decide after the fact, ooh, here's this perfect ledge that people are skateboarding on and we don't want it, and clamp it, it looks uglier than hell.
Breaks in the sidewalks, trees leaning over, various hazards where citizens may get injured, and they'll sue the city for a lot of money. Well, about that time, the skateboard issue came up. So the big talk about Clark at Broadway was, okay, we better fence it, and we'll only open it at certain hours a day because we'll have to have a supervisor and a guard. Well, the kids, of course, wanted to go there not during the day. They want to go there at night in the summertime, between 8 and at night and midnight. And so we didn't know what to do. So, oh, gee, this is horrible. And of course, Terry Bland was the head of Director of Legal Services, and I got this big liability, and we get sued for $5 million, and some kid becomes a quadriplegic or something, and what do we do? And so skateboarding wasn't very popular at that time, and so we sort of clammed up and took a very negative approach.
There's a bylaw called Section 77, and from what I know, it's Canada-wide, and it doesn't specifically states no skateboarding on it, but it's worded in such a manner that it can be interpreted as saying no skateboarding in public areas. And it's one of those things that at different times in skateboarding's popularity, it has or hasn't been enforced. And in the case of the most recent sort of issues with enforcing this bylaw, really came in the early 90s. And as I said, that was at a time where the 80s sort of vert scene and this backyard ramps and more vert skate parks and stuff was really sort of dying out and giving way to this whole new style of skating, which is moving into the street at the time.
I had one incident where I was actually not even riding my skateboard. I was sitting at a skate spot waiting for a ride to pick me up with my skateboard in hand, and got into a verbal disagreement with a police officer who was sure that I'd been skateboarding there, and I claimed that I wasn't, and ended up being handcuffed and embarrassed in front of a crowd full of people, and a boot stepping on my head and my board taken away, and it was a terrible, terrible experience, and it shouldn't happen to anybody.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. I'm representing Larry Campbell in the city of Vancouver. I was talking to some skateboarders in Toronto, and I told them that we were getting rid of the laws against boarding downtown, and they said, well, you must have the coolest mayor in the world. And I think maybe we do, because we've done it. You can now skateboard in the city of Vancouver. Okay, but now I want to tell you what we've done. We've made it legal to be a boarder in this city. And we've also done something else. We had a law that was the most backward law the city had. We passed a bylaw last week, and now the police can no longer confiscate skateboards. And I called up the police yesterday, and on behalf of the Vancouver Police Department, I would like to...
A little symbolic gesture here, giving back some confiscated skateboards. Sure,
these are three of the last boards ever confiscated in the city of Vancouver. We're going to give them over to you guys to do what you want to. Maybe hang them at the park, or, well, there you go.
Well, I think that this council really does recognize that skateboarding is legitimate. Not only the fact that it's an international sport, but that it's a legitimate form of transportation as well, and that it is mainstream. So many people do it, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to change the bylaw so that nobody ever confiscates a bicycle or rollerblades.
Tennis rackets.
Tennis rackets, exactly. So why did they have the ability to confiscate skateboards? And we thought it was blatantly unfair, so that's why we wanted to change it. And of course, kids nowadays, they want to have some sporting heroes, sporting models for them, and I think skateboard is a fine model to follow.
Well, because I mean, first of all, why would you make a legitimate expression of art and also sport illegal? I mean, we don't bust lawyers who come in on little scooters that they're pumping along. We let people, we don't know what we're going to do about segways yet, but skateboarding is just it's an ageist thing against youth. So it has to be, again, you're turning people who were defined by the previous administration as criminals, you're turning them into citizens who are valued in our society. One of the reasons that youth turn to drugs and other kind of antisocial activities is because they're seen as outside. They don't see as part of the city. They don't see as being contributors. We have a completely different attitude.
That's one thing that Mayor and Council actually did is they declared the first week in July Skateboard Week.
Yeah, that's important too.
And you actually had a banner over City Hall.
That's right, that's right. And the Skateboard Coalition, the Skatepark Coalition is very active, raises money. Virtually every politician of every stripe was at their last dinner. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're including them in and making them part, making them citizens as they should have been all along.
Skate Coalition, I got involved a few years after its inception. I attended a few meetings but didn't really stick with it too much. And then I got involved, I guess, 4 years ago more heavily. And Skate Coalition started originally as the Vancouver Skatepark Coalition. Their entire mandate was to try and establish an indoor skateboard facility, I believe, somewhere in the downtown area. But then it grew and grew and grew into all kinds of things skateboarding, whether it be trying to set up skateboard clubs or build new parks, outdoor parks, lessons, all that kind of stuff. Just all things skateboarding. It was kind of more of a skateboard association for Vancouver.
The interesting thing about this project was I came at a time when the city was really coming to a head for skateboarding pressure for spots. The city had put a major clamp down on all the major street spots in the lower downtown and the Upper East Side. And it was basically a lot of different skateboarders with a lot of very different styles of skateboarding, all needing one spot in a very small area. The challenges to that of getting a design that was going to be good for everybody was quite difficult. We had many meetings over how many stairs, is it an up gap, is it down, is it a hubba, should there be two, should there be a wall, should it be brick?
When you're dealing with skateboarders, you're likely to have some 14-year-old kid come with some very highly evolved AutoCAD file and say, this is, the specific tolerances and the specific dimensions at work. And in fact, you'll get a whole room full of people speaking a language that I personally have no idea what they're talking about.
As far as the team, I mean, our success is largely driven, I mean, we're all skaters first and foremost. So our team has come together as a group of, architects and engineers and people who have sort of went through their professional training but all started as skateboarders. And so, even though we're not all street skaters like myself, I prefer more like bowls and things like that, but we got a very diverse team. So we got street skaters who skate the stuff downtown that are on our team. And I think that's the critical I think almost any skater in here could probably draws pictures on their notebook and probably knows what they want to skate and thinks they can design a park, but it's really having that professional idea how much it costs to build things and sort of all the other issues that are involved with creating any space in the city, the drainage, the maintenance, all these things that are. The skateboarding is one aspect of it, but there's so many other things you got to take into consideration. So I think that because we have a mix of everything, we can all feed off each other and create something that's good.
The plaza is something that was pretty much a dream for us probably since the first day when we saw that skate stopper and we knew that ledge skating was going to be obliterated out of the urban landscape of Vancouver. So from that day forth, I mean, the idea of a place where you could freely skate the way that we wanted to skate, which was using city architecture to create tricks. Since that first day we saw that skate stopper, the dream of the plaza just seemed impossible. It seemed like it would never happen. And it did, so it's basically like a skater's dream come true, a place where you can just skate and hang out with your friends all day and not feel like you're miles away in one of the suburbs. You're actually in the city.
It's interesting for, well, I think it makes sense for a couple of reasons. One is it's a free roof. One of the things that I've noticed in the plaza is that it's still very usable even on rainy days. There are certain lines that you can skate unless it's just totally torrential. The other thing about under bridges is it's space that is hard to be developed for other purposes. So it tends to be available. I mean, it's either parking or it's unfortunately, it's often a matter of competing for fairly marginal spaces, but I think the plaza also proves that you can make a space like that very interesting and in fact revitalize it by putting a skateboard element in there. And I think one of the interesting things we didn't do is a really full before and after contrast in terms of there's a parking lot of marginal utility across from the park. Now what you have is clearly an extension of the park underneath the bridge.
I think a big part of it, I mean, the whole marketing aspect of it, like everyone's been calling it the Skate Plaza, you know what I mean? And to me, like, we never originally intended to try and do like a plaza type thing, because as a urban planner, as an architect or engineer, designing a plaza more, I guess, usually has a purpose, the entry to a building, or it's usually tied to something. And it was kind of really weird here trying to create, a plaza in a spot that's not really connected to anything. It's surrounded by roads. But the idea of the mindset behind it was, create urban terrain, replicate the stuff that's getting skated downtown here, and then that'll alleviate a lot of the problems and show people that instead of spending, tens of millions of dollars on security and damage and all skate stopping the whole city, $250,000 is a good start to get the kids somewhere. And I think really that what Vancouver skateboarding really needed was just one central place where everyone could meet up and sort of get together. So I think the success of this place, more so than what is here to skate, is its location, its proximity to the downtown core, its easy access by SkyTrain, like all those things more so than what we put in here that's what makes this spot so popular.
And what we eventually came to is the idea that it should be 4 basic principles of design, which were texture. The park needs to have different elements of texture in different ways that the street would be actually like in a downtown environment. We wanted to see something that was open, very much like a plaza, so that it was it felt, like it wasn't a street park. Landscaping, so that there was a natural element to it, so that it didn't feel totally urban. The style of material that was used, the concrete, brick, granite, and the different styles of rails. So that way there's at least each different element and each component was different for each part of the park. So it was a little something for everybody, and it encompassed everyone's goal for having one park that would encompass all the street elements of the downtown.
We've gone from capping it to realizing that it's actually a good thing to have skateboarding there. It's not bugging people, and in fact it's displacing a lot of negative activity by animating a public space with people who want to be there and want to own a piece of it. And that's something to be considered as well, that you can drive away skateboarders, and then you have to be careful what you wish for, because you may get uses of your park that really prevent anybody else from using it, whether it's sex or drug trade or what have you. People doing active, positive recreation is a good thing to happen in a park.
The park board, for instance, kicked the borders off a bridge in a park and capped everything, so they couldn't do it there. And the drug dealers took over. They took the caps off, brought the borders back, and eliminated the drug dealing.
So I think another reason why this has been so successful is that we've taken a totally unused space, totally undevelopable space, and we've turned it into another park for the city. And there's a bunch of kids having fun.
I think as far as this place goes, this is the best we could ever have right now. Like, the fact that it took 16 years and it was all worth it for the granite ledges as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because these ledges right here are probably the best ones in North America, if that's what you like, if you like ledges.
Yeah.
It's kind of like It's kind of like how people would travel to faraway countries to find the best waves. Like people are already coming from all over just to skate these granite ledges.
Everyone here is looking forward to the next skateboard park. As you look behind me, this is obviously not enough room for just one place. This isn't even the summer yet.
The skateboarding approach and the new skateboard park that's been built over the viaduct and under the viaduct is just ideal, and it's perfect. And the bike routes throughout the city. Well, that's why the city is rated so highly. Quality of life, mixed housing, people from all ages, all cultural backgrounds, all ages, able-bodied, disabled, young kids, skateboarding, bicycle riders, and dogs and everything is quite welcome. And you can live in the downtown core. And if you'd said that 20 years ago, people would think you were crazy.
The specter of a skateboard park in the neighborhood did fill neighborhood residents with fear and loathing. But what I saw happen is when the skateboarders were in the room advocating for themselves with neighbors, that there was a very definite bridging that took place, and even a mutual regard that began to emerge, and that was very interesting to see. I think there's a long way to go. I think that skateboarders really need to be conscious of and some are, of the need to be ambassadors for their sport, to legitimize their sport. I think there is a culture of, defiance that sometimes is counterproductive. But by and large, I think also what I've seen is people that have a facility in the ground that they cherish and they want to keep it and they want to be good neighbors.